If you think of the emotional skills, there are 3 strategies that people embark on to work on this. Strategy number 1 is through habit. So what does this mean? You realize, okay, it's better if I'm out of my head. It's better if I'm confident. It's better if I feel good. It's better if I'm unstifled. It's better if I'm grounded, so on and so forth. Awesome. How can I work on that directly, those emotional skills? By having more. And this is the mainstream approach where everyone wants to have more money, for example, more looks, right? Well, if I just was better looking, I'd feel more confident, and that'd take care of the emotional skills, right? If I had more money, if I had, all these awesome things and this big house and cool clothes, yes, I would finally be confident, right? That's the having paradigm. If I had more status, if I had better friends, if I had connections, if I had access to cool things, right? If I had, even going deeper, a scripted line. That's the having paradigm, right? And this is usually where people start out, right? Mainstream will say, hey, you can only be good socially if you're good looking. You can only be good socially if you have money and connections, right? Or you can only be good socially if you learn the exact right things to say. That's usually step 1 when people embark on this journey. It's like, I want to improve my social skills. How? What are some cool things to say? What are some cool lines, some cool stories? The more I have, the more I can allow myself to be confident. So they try to have and have and have. That's a lot of the old school socializing advice, and that there is the wrong approach.
Do an audit, right? Is there still a part of you that relies on one of them? Which one is more important, right? If a genie popped up and told you, I can give you looks or money, what would you pick? You can only have one of the 2. You'll either be really good looking and broke or really rich and ugly. Go. Right? Or if the genie could fix one, what would be the first one you could fix? And that's just good information for you where you're like, okay, on my end, money runs me more than looks, or looks runs me more than money, right? Basically list them out in order of priority. What about status, right? Social alliances, like who you know. Well, this really cool friend, my friend's, really popular, my friend's really rich, my friend's really good looking, that gives me permission, right? Competencies, having certain skills, right? I'm really good at this, so this gives me permission to be confident. Role plays. That's another one when you're put in a certain role, right? Like if any of you right now were put in the teacher role here, like say I bounced out, I'm like, hey, I gotta go, an emergency came up, Simon, take over the class, go. Simon would actually step into the teacher role, and just due to the dynamic, it would allow him to be more confident than if I say called him out right now in a non-teacher role. Okay, different role plays like that. This is why even you hear in different emergencies, people kind of rise up to the occasion, and suddenly they're super plane crash somewhere, and it's like, you do this, you go get that, when they usually wouldn't be like that at all. Okay, and then of course, scripted lines, scripted stories, where it's like, oh, look at all these stories I have, these lines I have. That's the source of my confidence. That's the source of my emotional confidence. Okay, this is all once more under the emotional skill strategy. And this is something that you want to move out of.
I started out with this, by the way. I started out with trying to learn different lines and cool stories, and even write down oh, this would be an interesting story, and perfect the words I would say, and it's just terrible. Okay, because guess what? Here's another little downside to this strategy. Even if you do temporarily feel this boost of confidence, it doesn't last, and it's not true confidence because you're giving your power away to that line. So even if it goes well, you never tell yourself, oh, that was awesome, I deserve credit. It's, oh, that was awesome, but only because of the line. So your true, you could say, confidence, how you view yourself, who you are, what you deserve, doesn't change at all. It actually makes you feel worse because it's like, oh, people only talk to me if I have this line. It's not me, it's the line. I got to compensate with even more lines because I'm so terrible. Now, as things evolve, or as you go a little deeper, you enter the doing paradigm. Okay? And this here is where your strategy relies on not what you have, but on what you do. Right? So, hey, the more action I take, the more confident I can be. The more I can unlock that confidence. Right? There's this technique called building momentum. A lot of people rely on this, where if they want to work on their social skills, they realize that, say you're out, I don't know, at an environment, say it's a networking event or something, and you want to start talking to people and being confident, you know that if you just talk to a lot of people and you gather a lot of positive experiences, positive proof, positive references, eventually it will give you permission to be confident. But you're still relying on that. Right? It's like, oh, I got to do. So it's the same as someone who relies technically on, say, looks or money. You're relying on action. Right? I need to, get enough positive references and then, I can finally be like that. Right? So momentum, different techniques, right? I realize that if I say a story and within the story I just disagree here, it creates a nice emotional spike and people rely on that, right? Or on just being able to talk and talk and talk. You'll sense you're in that doing paradigm where when you're talking to someone and say you have to be quiet, you feel your confidence and your sense of value drop. You don't feel comfortable. As soon as you're quiet, you're like, they're going to walk away. I got to talk. I got to do more. Right? It comes off as very try hard. You can never have a break. Right? That's the doing paradigm. And of course, that's the wrong one. Strategy number 3 is the being paradigm. And that's where it doesn't rely on anything. It's just who you are. Because if you think of having and doing, you're basically using these things as crutches to give you permission to be you.